Welcome to our webinar about turning your venue into a must-book brand this quarter. So again, for me, first I'd like to thank obviously MIA for this opportunity to kind of be talking today. And my kind of goal here today is kind of really give you practical ideas so you can really act right now and kind of help you increase those inquiries, elevate your brand, your venue, and really make the most of this kind of crucial time of the year. Today, it's not purely about kind of creativity for me. It's all how, it's all about kind of how kind of design and branding really helps drive that kind of sales performance. Hopefully, you can all chat on in the chat on within the browser. So feel free to kind of drop any messages in there, and if not, we can kind of pick them up during the end of the session. Can someone just throw something in the chat just to make sure it's working? Is that okay? Or just to double check, sometimes they can have a bit of a blip. I don't know if, yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. So we're all good. Okay, so yeah, so myself, who am I? I am Greg. I'm creative director at Force Studio. So I've been in the industry now coming up to 19 years. So the Force Studio is a creative design studio based here in Liverpool. So what we do is we help venues turn their spaces into must-book brands. So everything we do is focused on helping venues kind of connect their kind of brand story through to sales performance. And kind of who and what we kind of do within there. So we kind of work across 4 main kind of core areas, which are, brand clarity and visual consistency, which is all your logo, any other touch points of the brand aesthetics. Number 2 is kind of marketing materials that really sell those experiences. 3 is websites and campaigns that really help convert. And number 4 is kind of creative that really helps you as venues kind of really help fill those calendars up. So yeah, we're here to kind of attract more inquiries, tell your story clearly, and kind of create better experiences that guests will remember. So who we've worked with, over the, we've kind of, Force Studio's been in business around 4 years. And again, as I say, been in the industry 19, but we work with some brilliant brands across the UK. We work, again, you can see a few logos there on screen. So we've worked with the likes of the Jockey Club venues across their 15 race courses. We work with the likes of the Municipal Hotel and Spa, which is a 5-star hotel. I think they just got awarded this year, they just got awarded this week or last week with the AA, so an official 5-star hotel. Work with Novotel, and we work with Everton across the new Hilditton Stadium, across their premium lounges. You can see one slap bang in the middle, which is MIA as well. So you may recall last summer we went to the meeting show. So I went down there with the team to help launch that with Karen and work on the new identity. And I think that hadn't really been touched much for about 10 years. So what we kind of did is we wanted to, Karen's brief was to really help bring that in and make it feel a lot more vibrant colors and that individual. And I think when you see the kind of the dot on the I, for me, that is all about the individual people, the individual venues and what have you, and everything kind of in between there. But, for me, it's everything we do is obviously helping you as venues kind of like stand out and kind of sell out. And for me, obviously knowing Karen from previous years, I kind of, one of my first jobs in my career was to work at ACC Liverpool. So I don't know if many of you know what ACC Liverpool is. Well, that is, it stands for the Arena and Convention Centre in Liverpool. And so for me, I kind of understand kind of both the pressures of both the creativity and the operational side of things. So I was there working across a variety of different assets, whether that be design through to website build, web apps, a variety of different things. And I even did the brand for the Exhibition Centre Liverpool as well, which is really nice. And I think they've just had their 10th year anniversary. I think that's this year. But yeah, it's great to kind of be back sharing ideas with the MIA members. So before we kind of dive in, everything I want to kind of share today is built upon what we've worked on and what kind of happens, within those real venues. So setting the scene, I saw I've been doing a variety of different bits of research, and I think, back in, after COVID 2021, I think there was a stat that I kind of read that on average, bookings were then, booked up around, I think 300 odd days, before the event. And I think nowadays, they've kind of like dramatically reduced, and, hopefully, a few here will vouch for that, nowadays they are, 50% of those bookings are confirmed within 4 weeks. And, so for yourself, it's got to be quick, got to be agile, got to be moving, and we've got to look good. And, obviously the price point is going to be great as well. So for me, the kind of the speed and consistency kind of really helps kind of close those deals. And I think yourselves, you've all got a USP, but in the same breath, if you're in the same city or what have you, or the same kind of a similar kind of venue to others, for me, it's, you've got to kind of stand out between those other venues that you're kind of pitching up against. And think you might have the best food, the best service and the best space, but I think for me, if you're not kind of presenting yourselves in your best light, or that customer service doesn't necessarily reflect how you kind of work, I think could be onto a downward spiral on things. But yeah, I think it's kind of just being agile and kind of really being consistent that can help close those deals. So the must book kind of formula, as we say. So on kind of today's webinar, we're looking at those kind of 5 areas you see on screen. So we're looking to really helping your brand kind of convert visibility into bookings. So we're looking into timeless branding. So that's kind of the create kind of consistency that guests will remember. Refining presence, so making sure your venue looks and feels cohesive. Number 3 is adapting to trends, and that's kind of staying current without losing your brand identity. Longevity, so that's all investing once and benefiting for months ahead. And then finally, number 5, so engaging experiences. So we're looking at trying to do and ways of kind of delivering shareable moments that kind of fuel organic marketing. And again, across all 5, they are kind of intertwined with one another, so they do overlink. So but yes, so let's kind of kick into timeless branding. But when I touched on it before, but when I kind of say timeless branding, and I'm not just purely talking about logos and color palettes, it's all about kind of creating an identity and experience that people will remember. So you've got on screen there, which is a big stat, that by increasing or improving your kind of brand presentation and having a consistent brand presentation can increase your kind of bottom line revenue by up to 33%. Which is mad. Like a third of your revenue could come just purely from that brand presentation of things. So whether that be your Christmas campaign, whether that be visiting your website, or people walking into the event space, it all should kind of feel aligned with what you kind of offer. I was in I don't know if anyone went to the Independent Hotel Show back at the start of this month. So I was there talking to a variety of different people. I met the founder of Mulberry, which was really, really interesting, and kind of talking and having different discussions with him. But for me, I kind of went to a stand, and this guy sells scents. Like he's a perfume person, whatever you kind of call that. And we were talking in detail of you've got all of these kind of consistencies that want into the brand kind of presentation, but a lot of people can kind of leave scent as a secondary, not really kind of thinking about that. And I think he was saying that a lot of his venues that he kind of works with, or it could be 3-4 star hotels or venues. What they're doing right now is they are going for the most expensive scents. So when people walk in that lobby or whatever, that kind of the sensors, in a sense, you can kind of, it makes you feel a lot more premium than you are. And I think that, again, just a simple quick win of the sense that the perfume that's going around in your venue can really help elevate your offering. And I think for me, it's that kind of consistency really helps kind of connect to that the guests' experience and the loyalty. And we've all got, there is, as I said before, there's hundreds of venues that are kind of competing for attention. And I think it's those ones that really want to stand out. The ones that kind of really stand out are the ones that are most cohesive. So your menus through to your email, inquiry emails, kind of, they've all got to feel feel on brand and look on brand. And I think for me, that kind of brings me like nicely onto like tone of voice. So I wanted to kind of, there is throughout these slides, a few kind of questions I wanted to kind of get a bit of engagement from yourselves. So I wanted to kind of see, again, show of hands, or feel free to go in the chat, again, with a yes, use a Y or N, whatever it could be. But I wanted to kind of see if people, show of hands of like, how familiar are you all with like kind of your brand tone of voice? Do you have a tone of voice guide across, within your organization? Do many people have that? So that's like when you're marketing or speaking to a prospect, it's always the right way of saying things. So you've got the likes of, Virgin Atlantic, they use "See You in the Skies" as like a brand sign off. And you also got the likes of Soho House. I think they use, "With love from the house," or something of those lines. So I think they've always got this kind of consistent sign offs. So I think, for me, when your brand feels kind of consistent and confident, people really trust you a lot more and can really help you kind of drive that bookings. Hopefully the chat is working, but I've not seen anyone commenting there. But yeah, feel free to kind of throw in some of your kind of messages in there. So let's move on to your team. So for me, kind of your team kind of brings your brand to life. And I think, you may have Michelin star chefs in the kitchen, you may have the best people in there, but if it's not delivered correctly, I think the whole experience is ruined. And I think I've been there, I've been to a beautiful restaurant and the people have just kind of thrown a plate on, in front of you because they're busy, which is, I understand people are busy, but there's a way of doing things. And I think it's all about, everyone throughout the whole of the venue should be trained to a certain standard, whatever their role could be. And I think, coming into Q4, how many of you have, again, a question, of how many of you kind of have got scheduled like a pre-season tasting or kind of training that kind of really helps celebrate your offering for Q4 for your staff? I don't know if anyone has that, or that's a thing that they have scheduled in their, within their kind of each quarter, or around Christmas or something like that. Do you have a training sessions that can really celebrate your brand or your offering to your staff? So for me, it's kind of, I would kind of get everybody kind of involved in that. And I think, for me, when you kind of get and let your staff try like the Christmas menu, whether they tasting the cocktails, experiencing those kind of offerings themselves, really kind of comes true. And I think it's really, for me, I think having people experience that, whatever it could be, they like a certain piece of, there's a certain meal or there's a certain cocktail. When they're talking to prospects or they're in the venue and someone kind of says, and I've had it in restaurants and people go, "What would you recommend?" And people can go, I don't know what I would kind of recommend. And I think for me, when you've got someone that kind of really sells something authentically and they really can talk about that particular thing, or there's something about that, that energy that people can kind of communicate back to that the customer, the guests, guests will remember that. And I think that's the thing for me. It's so easy to kind of to skip that internal launch, but let's try and get your staff, get your team excited first. And once you're starting and from the bottom up, you can see it. And I think it can be missed so so easily. But yeah, Christmas is, I don't know how many sleeps away, but yeah, it's kind of around the corner. And obviously Christmas parties are starting in probably a month's time, if not earlier. But I think brand experience isn't kind of just what kind of guests see, it's how they feel kind of every step of the way. And I think that brings me on to there's a venue, a beautiful hotel and spa that I've been to numerous times, but their booking system is terrible. I think for me, the only reason why I go to this space is because it's a beautiful space. I've tried, I've stayed over before, and the staffing and the training of that said venue, and they've got multiple venues. It's not brilliant, but I only go there for the spa, which is brilliant. So the thing I've tried in the past to, they have all call to actions on the website, which is great, but they're saying, you know, book a treatment and book this, do that. You call the hotline or, you know, the phone number to make that booking, because they don't let you do bookings online. But you ring it and it rings out and it rings out and it rings out, and you think, so there's no one is there to answer. So for me, that it's just a really poor, like, kind of, it leaves a kind of a bitter taste in your mouth when you're going to this beautiful space, but people can't be bothered to work on the fundamentals to kind of get things going. So if you're doing, you know, things amazing, I think you've just got to make sure that everything is kind of ironed out and you know, worked out. So again, brings us on to this. So small gestures make a huge, big brand impact. So as you know, many of your businesses, we're all wanting to kind of create those wow moments that we can. And for venues, for you know, for hotels, for whatever it is that you have, you know, there's, what can we make? And again, these are all kind of cues for you to kind of obviously make notes and think of, like, what, you know, thinking, giving you more ammunition to think of how you can change or do things and make things better within your venue. And I think if you've got something, how can we make things like those unexpected gestures? What can we do and make these different? So for instance, like, you can tell the hints behind with the mince pie, but you know, if you've got overnight guests, why not over this festive period is like getting some sort of mince pies. So when they walk in, I know, you know, I've been to numerous hotels where they kind of have a, you know, your fruit platter with your name or thanks or, you know, whatever. But for that, is there a possibility to work with the local bakery, you know, use your chefs in house to kind of create things and have people that can, when they arrive into their room, they see this, these mince pies. And for me, it goes a long way. And, you know, they'll always kind of talk about a variety of offerings that you've had. And again, venue wise, I know we all do the pads, we do the pens, and we've got the bottles of branded water in that's fine. But is there anything we can kind of give people to take away and really kind of make them feel kind of truly valued? I think for me, that's kind of what I would call micro moments. So, you know, low cost, you know, high emotion, and like that, you know, helps with, you know, that kind of that brand gesture. And yeah, it doesn't have to feel expensive. It just needs to feel, you know, personal. I think, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, it's all kind of what really kind of relates back to your brand and who you are. It could be if you're in the, you know, the heart of London. I think it was the Holiday Inn. I went to the Holiday Inn. I think it might be in the host, when was it? I think it was the launch of MIA last year. I was walking around and there's a Holiday Inn and they had the old telephone box, in the red telephone box. Again, for me, that's you know, stood in. It was just stuck in the back of my mind. So again, it's just trying to do things that feel relevant to you, that people can kind of bring, you know, tie back to your brand emotion. Again, brings us on nicely onto an experience that I had a few weeks back. So trainers, I'm a big runner myself. And you know, a few months back, I purchased a new pair of trainers online, small independent, based in Manchester, in Alderley Edge. I ordered some from there. But when I received them, I got, inside the box was a handwritten note from them to say, thank you for purchasing them, a discount code for my next purchase, and a pack or two of Love Hearts that didn't last long. I think they lasted about 10 or 12 seconds. So they were consumed very quickly. But for me, having something as small as that can go a long way. I think, you know, 92% of consumers really trust recommendations from friends and family. And from that, I've got like one of my good friends is he's a good runner, so I kind of run with him. I told him on a run about this experience and shared with him the discount code. And immediately the next run we went on, he had a pair of trainers, he had the Love Hearts and everything like that. And he told me, you know, it's all about that power of thoughtful branding. I think once you turn people, what we want to do is kind of turning these customers into advocates, so they can shout from the hills of who you are. And I think those small touches kind of can create the most powerful form of marketing. And as we all know, the best kind of tool is word of mouth marketing. It's free, but we've got to do something different to make things feel, you know, and feel memorable. So like, I'd really, on my side, kind of encourage you to think of, like, you know, what can you do, and what can you do that people can talk about you as a company or as a venue that make things different. You know, that memorable kind of equals, you know, marketable. So I have worked with Novotel. So I've worked with Novotel. Kind of what we kind of had and did there is we kind of looked into one of their F&B offerings that they had. So they had a successful coffee shop, full of students most of the time, and they had, and again, I think it was a 70-30 split, so more students, but it looked pretty boring. I think is the, it didn't feel that great. So you can kind of see on the top two images, top left, is you've got the images that they look like they've just been taken on and made on PowerPoint, which I think they had. Very pretty and bland in a sense. And then on the bottom left is like a table talker, which doesn't really work. You can't even see it, you can't read it. And then you've got on the right, you've got some posters and other comms throughout the hotel. And I think for me, what that was, it wasn't really doing what they wanted it to do. They wanted to drive it and make it feel more of a high street brand. So we work with the team to really develop a name, a brand, brand identity, and photography and what have you. And we can already help develop that. And we came into this. So from a simple, kind of grey, blue and white, kind of, obviously, I know, yes, it's on brand for Novotel, but what we want to do is kind of create a different identity. And I think, hopefully you agree. I think, for me, what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of create a tone that really kind of had that, it was intentionally like energetic and bold. So we've kind of brought in these really vibrant like oranges and like these different colors, and wanted to make it feel high street. So we wanted people to be walking down the street with their coffee, because they had a lot of kind of passers-by or people that would come in daily, just grab a coffee and then they'd go, but they weren't in branded cups or anything like that. So we wanted to kind of carry that on further throughout the city. So that was from t-shirt design, menus, tank cards, through to fully automated screens. So at breakfast they have a second screen. On the second, when it hits lunch, they change and what have you. And then the likes of social styles and all that kind of stuff. So if that was called Core 10 Coffee. So Core 10, if you're aware, that's like the cladding. That was the cladding they've got around the building, which is kind of that rusty. I think it changes over the years. So we kind of wanted to complement to that, and kind of bring kind of Core 10 Coffee into it. Also within that, they have got like 10 values that they kind of want to sit along that, and they want to, because it's like a hub for a lot of students, they wanted to be the kind of the core, and they've got like the different universities that are surrounding that. So for me, the visuals, the copy, and even down to the packaging really kind of reflects that urban kind of student energy around this, around the space. And it clearly, in my eyes, it kind of really owns its own personality. I think guests, when they see it, they know when when they're walking in of who and what that kind of is. So we're now looking into extending your kind of brand story, from beyond Christmas. So we're wanting to kind of look at creating a timeless brand that kind of really builds relationships for you, and not just kind of transactions. I think for yourselves, we want it to kind of feel that yes, we've got Q4 right now, but we're in Q4. I think we want to now overstep the mark and kind of do it so we can be at top of mind for Q1. What is the reason why we can get people to book our venue in Q1? There's a lot of businesses that have the planning sessions in Q1. Is there a campaign that we could go down for Q1 to kind of get in now when we've got these people in this last quarter? We're going to have a lot of footfall. Can we try and communicate to them now to plan for Q1? And again, it's just kind of making sure that we're at top of mind for that, and really making different ways of doing it. So it could be, if you've already got someone that's staying or in a venue, a small thank you, a token for them is like, literally a thank you letter is the first, and then there could be, complimentary drinks. There was a restaurant chain that emailed me the other day. It's my birthday in a couple of weeks' time, and they said to me on the email, it's like, if you can, I think you can up to 5 or 6 guests can come for a complimentary drink, I think, whilst eating. So for me, straight away, it's got me up, and I want to kind of to go there. It's all about trying to think of ways in which we can kind of get people in there. through email marketing or have you. But it could even be down to the likes of, if you've got a spa or anything, other facilities in and around, it's kind of giving those discounts so guests will return. I think those kind of simple touch points will really keep your venue at the top of Q1. I think, even kind of corporate, I think it's just a matter of, how can we get them to book earlier for, if they're doing a, we want the cash in the bank, really. I think, if we've got an event that's not happening now until next October, let's start having that conversation in January, get at least a deposit in. So Q1 is looking good. So again, reinforcing the brand has, makes a, more transactional relationship. It's not just like a one-off, we're in and we're out kind of thing. I think for me, once your brand feels kind of timeless, I think the next step is kind of refining how it shows up. So feel free again to use the chat, and if you've got any, you're willing to share any ideas, but is there any, have you got any like successful things that you've done previously in Q4 that you can help to get returning guests in Q1? I don't know if anyone has got any ideas on there, but yeah, it'd be really good to see what's worked from yourselves, and see if you can share that within the MIA kind of community. But yeah, I think for me, it's all about making sure that we can we're not just doing Q4, it's all about that kind of holistic and planning for the months ahead. So moving on to refining your presence, and I think for me, it's all looking into the kind of consistency gap. So for me, your brand should feel seamless, whether that be online, whether that be in print or in person. I think those comms should really look and sound like it belongs to yourselves. And I think I've seen so many kind of beautiful websites, so many beautiful campaigns out there. But I've walked into the lobby of those said places. I've seen a pull-up banner that someone's gone absolutely crazy on Canva for. I think and it looks nothing like the creative that that was once sold of that event online or wherever it could be. And I think, yes, we all have teams that can we've got marketing support, we've got marketing execs, and I think we could throw them onto Canva to do stuff that other agencies kind of done. But I think for me, it's all about just making sure that it's all on brand. And I think for me, it kind of breaks that illusion. I think every touch point should kind of really help reinforce the same story. So I think for me, this is kind of a quick example of what I mean by the kind of consistency gap. So this is a local hotel to me. So on the left, when I saw this, on the left, it kind of really completely broke the brand perception. I think it's a beautiful venue. And it completely feels completely different to this. And I think for me, I was just looking around and think this. It's not how I would kind of represent this venue. I think it's beautiful. So what I did, I kind of went away and kind of reimagined how it would look. So using the same imagery, same messaging, same logo, just designed it on brand. And I think on the right, they have a very minimal kind of look, but what we tried to do is kind of bring in how many rooms, the rosettes, table, flexible table plans, a variety of different things. They've got the traveler's choice for TripAdvisor and stuff like that. So you can showcase all of these visual cues that people, it's trust. As soon as people see these, the variety of different areas, it's all built on trust. So I think you can see the difference. I think one of them looks like a four-star hotel, and the other looks like a conference center from back in 1998. You decide on which one you're going with on that. But again, it's for me, it's the power of consistency. I think brands that kind of maintain that visual consistency are kind of like 3 to 4 times more likely to be seen as high quality, which is mad. So I think it's about a matter of making sure you're super sharp with where and what you're doing. So yeah, make it Instagrammable. You've all got venues, you've all got different spaces, you've all got different rooms, you've all got different offerings, you've got different F&B offerings, but find opportunities to design things for shareability, not just for a function. I think there's, as my wife would do, we go out to different restaurants or whatever it could be. when we see something good, she's there on it, bang, puts it on her story, puts it on socials and stuff like that, and kind of shares that with the world. But that, again, for me, kind of goes back to that free marketing. You know, that's that word of mouth marketing that can kind of go around, and your peers, that people, or, you know, the people who are going to these events, they will then really see that and share it, you know, with their like-minded individuals. So I think for me, it's kind of like thinking about your kind of Christmas creative, or whatever kind of creative campaigns that you've got, as a thread to tie everything together, you know, from your brochures through to your kind of different venue proposals to menus and the kind of table talks. I think, as I say, guests love to share where they are, and I think the more kind of cohesive, the more photogenic, you know, your materials are, the more they'll post it, the more they'll tag you, and the more they'll amplify the brand. It's, you know, it's really straightforward, really easy to do. I think kind of creating those visuals and those setups that people want to take photos on, like, of, you know, again, here is kind of a more like a baby shower kind of thing, but it's still, people will share it because it's big, it's wow, and it, you know, so I think it could even be down to, you know, not even the setting, but as I touched on earlier, it's like a branded cocktail. You know, if you've got like a tent card or a, you know, table talker on the bar, can we turn in, you know, like, there's a business that I'm working with now. We've got Halloween tomorrow, and they've got a variety of cocktails just for tomorrow. And so we've done like a creative for that to kind of put on the bar so people can see it and people can purchase and uplift that, you know, their channels. So I think it's just a matter of, you can kind of get a branded cocktail or something of that sort, people will see it and take photos of it and share it. So I think when kind of guests share your content, I think it's, you know, as I said, it's marketing your venue for free. It's social proof that, you know, it works, and it's going to fuel your bookings for next year. And I think it's all about kind of capturing all of that content, those stories that people have used, and really using that for your, you know, as ammunition for next year. I think even on that, you know, you could ask guests to use a hashtag so it doesn't get lost, you know, or at us on the story, or whatever it could be. But if, you know, using the likes of a hashtag, you know, that then becomes your digital footprint for next year. You know, it'll be easy for you to then pull those images of whatever. And I think, I'm sure there's a thing, you know, that Instagram came out with. I think anything that's on Instagram can be marketable and people can use. So, you know, you don't necessarily have to ask the permission of the, you know, who's posted it. I think I'm sure it's within Instagram's guidelines that I think, I don't think it's actually Instagram who own them. But what I'm trying to say is that you can use those images and kind of help sell the product for next year. So moving on to a seamless kind of presence, kind of, I feel like builds instant trust. So when you're kind of crafting a creative or like a campaign, I think biggest for me is kind of steering away as much as you can from generic stock photography. I think it's so easy to kind of to buy it, and, you know, it looks and feels like us, but for me, it's really impersonal. I think if you can really make sure that you feel, you know, show yourself as it is, as, you know, as a beautiful venue, you know, do it. Food photography, a variety of things like that. You know, we've done a recent, as I mentioned before, we work with Everton in the Hill Dickinson Stadium. They've got around 19 different experiences in the stadium. Again, if you've been there before, it's incredible. You know, steakhouses, Pan Asian, they've got a variety of different, you know, even down to fine dining, 7-course. I think on that, it's kind of trying to invest in, if you know, 1 to 2 kind of professional photography sessions each year. I think, you know, for me, it's planning that, you know, I think even down to like a 60-minute photo shoot can really help you and really put yourselves for the months ahead. So I think it's, you know, it's really kind of showing and helping guests really experience kind of the ways of, you know, they can kind of more emotive to the spaces that you've kind of got. And I think that then gives you ammunition to kind of really show how you can showcase the photography across video and across the website, and it can really help. But I think it's trying to envisage with people with the likes of, you know, sitting in the lobby, or, you know, having sipping a cocktail at the bar. I think when, as I say, when that kind of creative kind of feels kind of cohesive, you know, guests will really see you as a professional, trustworthy, and worth booking. I think that's why, you know, that's what kind of kind of refining your kind of presence is all about. I think it's removing the gaps between how venues look online and how it kind of appears in person. I think within the brand moment. So again, we work with the likes of the Jockey Club venue. So we work with them over the last few years, and that's all to do with brand campaigns through to photography, through to brand rollout. And I think you can see on the right hand side there, we did a campaign for them, which is everyone knows them for the racing. But what we want to try and do there is kind of create a juxtaposition in the sense of an ad that had and showed like the horse, but because they do a lot of like baby and toddler events and what have you, we want to kind of show that and split it in half, and you've got someone that looks that's on a horse, and it kind of pushing that through, so it looks like they're obviously pushing a pram. Again, you can see that with the brick building there as well, the likes of, we've got like the racing post, and we've got a disco ball as well. So again, trying to show that they do Christmas parties and what have you, and we had a variety of series for that to kind of show, so it doesn't, meetings and venues don't, and campaigns don't have to be boring. We can kind of feel and think of different ways of doing that. So with the Jockey Club, they have obviously 15 race courses, but they've got each race course has got different brands. They've all got different logos, but they've got a different colouring. So again, typography is the same, the tone is the same, but and in fact that visual hierarchy is. But again, it helps kind of give that kind of like that breathing room for its own identity for each one. But again, yeah, it's all about kind of consistency in structure. I think that has and kind of really helps create that flexibility and character for the different said areas. But yeah, that is, we've done social campaigns and graphic design and various bits for them. But yeah, before we move on, I think I was chatting, on to a hotel. Sorry, not hotel. It was a venue actually in the Independent Hotel Show, and they were based in London. This was earlier on in this month, and they were talking to me. And again, hopefully this will kind of, finding this useful for you all. I think it's like they were saying to themselves they're struggling to attract the right type of people, and I was quizzing them, what do you mean by you trying to attract the right type of people? I asked them simple questions like, who exactly are you targeting? And I think, I don't know if you've all kind of used this before, like the ICP, so your kind of ideal kind of customer profile. So, again, you take a screenshot of that if you haven't. But I think looking across your industries, the revenues that these people are making, the location, the company size, job title, age group, and all that kind of thing, and more. Having that can really help you talk and really push you into an areas that you want to speak. Also, kind of, I spoke to them about like, how are you speaking to them, and how does your website position you, and where are you listed online? And I don't know, like, have many of you got an ideal customer profile? I don't know if anyone's. Feel free to put that in the chat. But it turns out when I was speaking to the client, is they were listed on every site that was possible. They were on it, and they were chasing volume instead of that alignment. And I think we then we dug deeper, and their day rate is actually a lot lower than like 4-star competitors. So again, if it's a little bit cheaper, people can then see that as not added value and what have you. But these are a 5-star awarded with AA and what have you. And yeah, they're just like, they're cheaper than their 4-star competitors. So I think what we then did is we worked with them on to kind of really reshape their offering really. So tightened up their brand messaging, improving their listings, and adjusting the pricing just to match the experience that they deliver. So for me, there was no creative, no visuals on that. All it was just about changing the type of clients that they wanted to attract, and that kind of helped us, push into the boundaries of where we're going on there. So yeah, and then that kind of brings me nicely onto here. So now onto kind of like adapting trends. So I think for me, we're all probably familiar with these images here. I think everyone, I think it was back at last year, there was a Willy Wonka experience. I think it was in Edinburgh or Scotland somewhere, and they kind of showed and showcased it as this beautiful AI image on the left, which I've got. I use AI in support, not in graphics, but to kind of support me along a variety of different things. So if you're not using it, I would use it. But on they on the right is the image that people actually arrived and they saw it. And I think in a way it got, you know, really bad press. You know, I know people say all press is good press, but yeah, they didn't get great press about this. And I think for me, this is kind of a perfect example of how not to market your event. I think going back to like what we covered earlier about like kind of refining your presence, I think if you've got like a beautiful Christmas creative or whatever, Easter creative, or just general events or meetings, you know, it's beautiful, it's sophisticated, but then when people get to your venue, they've got neon lights, they've got these big loud balloons, they've got disco lights, whatever it could be. It's kind of like, whoa, this is not what we asked for. So yeah, I think for me, it's all about making sure that those bookings should kind of match what they experience in person. And that's also works across, you know, the decor and F&B. So, you know, 82% of event planners say that the decor and F&B innovation can directly influence their booking choice. So, you know, I think gone are the days of the Christmas parties. I think it's a lot more, you know, kind of created spaces, design led with, you know, like, I'm seeing at the minute now with the different trends. It's like rich color blocking. You've got the likes of sustainable materials. So you've got your wood, your dried botanicals, natural fabrics, and what have you. But then you've also got, you know, statements of like floral and sculptural details and stuff like that. There's a lot of venues that use fresh flowers, which are great. But again, I don't know if any of you have used them before, but there's a company called Ethem London, ETHEM, and they do like near enough like identical. They look like fresh flowers, but they're artificial. And again, if you can, I've been in hotels or venues and you've got these limp flowers that, you know, that have been there for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I think it just ruins it. And I think if you can kind of get these fake flowers, artificial flowers, throw them into the reception or something, it's just another thing off your to-do list to make your venue look better. You don't have to worry about it, and you can kind of change that, but as and when. But looking across that on F&B, I think it's more, you know, guests want to experience something different. I think, you know, we've all been there, even recently, you know, people want to have that elevated and considered kind of space. You know, we don't want to kind of have just another chicken breast wrapped in bacon. I think we're seeing we're looking at people that, I think what I'm seeing is like creating more kind of plant-based menus that are, you know, really designed. I think there's not kind of added last minute or an afterthought. You know, there's so many people who are vegan and what have you these days, and I think have that as one of the leading things, you know, is a big one for yourselves. But yeah, because I think it's, you know, everyone kind of takes for granted, oh, you know, we need a chicken on there, we need a fish on there, and then we'll have a vegetarian. But I think it's just making sure that we can kind of cater for all and do it really, really well. And with that, you've got the likes of interactive setups from, you know, cocktail stations and chef kind of led canapes. But yeah, for me, the way you kind of F&B is presented really speaks volumes of your brand. And I think that you can see like the Aperol Spritz here, you know, having something like that, a brand up for a branded coffee or cocktail van in your venue would be brilliant. And I think it makes it Instagrammable. It makes you feel, you know, people want to talk about it and they'll take photos of it, you know, so it's a matter of making yourselves memorable. So moving up from, you know, into like longevity, let's see how we can kind of make your investments kind of keep, you know, working month on month. So, you know, we've talked about kind of memorable experiences. We've talked about refining your presence and even down to adapting to trends. But for me, the real power comes from, you know, all of that content and what you've done afterwards. So, you know, 70% of event content kind of goes unused, you know, because it's not being repurposed. So I think for me, you know, right now, I think it's kind of a matter of creating a plan to repurpose and drive all of that whatever you're kind of capturing, whether that be creative or whatever, to really help market yourselves into January and beyond. I think that kind of like that strong festive kind of shoots or the evergreen visuals for campaigns or sales decks or venue hire marketing, I think it really kind of helps. And I think everybody's been guilty of it. And I, you know, work with some venues, and I ask them, have you got any photos of that event that you did last year that we can help promote it? They're like, no, we haven't got any, I'm sorry. I was like, can we get any? And it's like, we then have to sometimes use stock or something. So for me, it's all about kind of being and making a plan. So for me, I'd say, here's a reminder for yourselves, it's to kind of book a photographer and capture and I'm not saying to book me, But because it's like you capture your festive season, like your setup, so you've got it, so you can help sell it next year. Again, I don't know if many of you have got your photographers booked, but yeah, please kind of try and get that booked in so you can kind of capture it. I think your phone kind of snaps, I don't think will cut it, and I think investing in quality will really help you kind of more along across the year. I think that the most marketable venues are the ones that kind of really think ahead. And that could be used across the likes of, as I say, Q1 venue, hire campaigns, trade show visuals. You've got brochures and website updates through to your future kind of creative campaigns. And I think, I've worked with a few venues that are right now working on their creative for Christmas for next year, for Christmas 2026. And I think by having yourselves ready to market for that, after we've worked with brands that on Boxing Day, they've gone out with their campaign for next year. I think if you can kind of do and create that all, front load it now, it should just be drip feeding it all throughout the year then. And I think when people are sat at home and they're stuffed with after their turkey, what have you, I think that's a great time to get them, get people talking, and when people want a bit of me time, capture them on socials and talk about your venue, you could be onto a winner. I think that the venues kind of the plan and that kind of invest now are probably the ones leading the conversation come January. I think it's all of these kind of trends kind of really help you kind of get opportunities in the future. But with all of that, you need to kind of arm your team with the right kind of tools. So it's so easy, again, the venue wise is we're all running at 100 miles an hour. We're trying to jump ship for here. We've got emails. We're working till midnight, if not later. And we're doing things, doing as quick as we can and as best as we can. But it's all about brand perception that really counts. I think, for me, there's a lot of venues that will send a proposal in a Word doc or in the email, and that's it. Here's your figures, and this is how it all looks. And I think for me, you're just like the rest of them. I think it's kind of like, for me, try and make it more memorable. I think, using your assets, moving your color palette, your fonts, whatever it could be, and your photography, trying to bring it in so people can remember yourselves. And I think those kind of proposals really instantly elevate you. People are going to go to at least 2 or 3 venues. Try and make sure that you can be elevated and really, at the forefront of mind. And I think, similar to my earlier point of, I've spoken about, working with amazing brands, but those uninspiring Word docs just don't really cut it. So I think emotion really sells before even down to the price. If you can kind of see the offering and like that, they're aspiring to be, it really helps with that. And I think, we've again worked with a few venues on, beautifully kind of polished master templates that they can have, could be super quick to be reused with, speed and consistency. So it's literally a matter of dropping in prices, all on brand. It's got a cover, whatever it is. We've often got like those design editable templates so that teams can really just customize them as fast as they can. People haven't got time to be doing and making things look nice. It's just a matter of get those numbers, get it in there. Let's get those venues booked. So you can see on screen here, so we've worked with the Municipal Hotel. Again, we've done a variety of different comms for them for Christmas, with Christmas like brochures and comms. We've worked with across the weddings to showcase the spaces for how the weddings can look and how they can be dressed, events, even down to spas. For me, that's made a huge difference, for the teams and really how they can uplift themselves. And I think, when your kind of salespeople have that on brand collateral, they feel confident promoting your spaces. I think, it's professional, it's consistent, and really shows you and the venue in the best, light possible. And again, website wise on, with engaging experiences, I think it's so tempting for yourself to, let's put some shouty, flashy banners on the website because we need to convert, we need sales, we need this, we need the other. I think 57% of those users won't come back. If they go on mobile, they're not going to come back to you. So it's a matter of trying to make sure the website, everything is cohesive. And I think, for me, it's all about making sure that guests can instantly understand what you offer, where you are, how they can inquire or book as soon as. And I think the less friction we've got, the better. It's all about website kind of simplicity, having peppered throughout it is like interrupters, which have got like those call to actions, so a bit more information, just a button. Do we have floor plans on there? Different call to actions, or even down to gated content. So if someone gives us their email address, they then get into more information. We can kind of, it's a snowball effect that we can kind of keep on kind of marketing to them. And again, we've done that. We've audited different sites, but I think it's more, I would say, can ask your partner or your best friend or someone when you're next in the pub or you're in a wine bar, ask them if they do it. If they give them a task of, can they make these can they make a booking within 3 clicks of your website or something like that? So to really make sure, and you can kind of see if it works. And I think 88% of users won't kind of return back after a bad user experience. So it's really a must that we make things look as good as they can. Again, these are some email designs that we did for Everton. So they had some really bland, more like just navy blue emails. And what we wanted to try and do is really showcase their space in the best light. So more emotion. You've got people with eating dinner, the spaces and what have you. So yeah, just trying to make things and making sure that people can really before people kind of arrive, show them that kind of the opportunity to really see this, the space. And we've done I think walkthroughs for different kind of clients and stuff like that. But I think it's the likes of like walkthroughs make a huge difference, and I think it's much stronger kind of sell. I think having those walkthrough or the behind the scenes really gives you you and the prospects a real good understanding of your kind of atmosphere in and around the venue. And the ways, how can we make it interactive? We want to make sure people remember us, right? I think that's the thing, is make things like memorable. I think that's what we're all about. It's all about customer experience and making things memorable. So for me, it's kind of ways in which the guests can engage with your brand and remember it. Is there an opportunity somewhere or a piece of tech that you can bring into the venue? Something that people can post about. It could be digital guest books, or where people kind of can leave a festive message or something about a plus about the venue that other prospects can see, and it's on a conveyor belt. But with that, you've got like a projection wall that people, it could be interactive, or similar to this kind of thing. You've got yourself, your kind of pop-up kind of selfie or the 360s, which I was having a lot of fun doing this back in earlier in this year at Black Tie. But yeah, these moments kind of create that emotional connection, and they're really one that guests will share, which I have absolutely here. But yeah, I think it's all about linking back to your brand theme. So when kind of guests engage, they don't just kind of enjoy your venue, they help kind of market it. So for me, I know we're coming up to like 5 to now. So I think, I just wanted to kind of recap on the kind of the final pillars that we've kind of explored. So obviously we've got to look at timeless branding. So it's all about kind of creating consistency that guests remember, refining presence. So making sure your venue is, looks and feels cohesive, adapting trends, staying current, longevity. So again, it's about investing now, and that will hopefully benefit, months to go, and then engaging experiences. So that's all about, delivering those shareable areas of business. So to help fuel yourselves. But if you can focus on 1 or 2 of these areas that we've been talking about before Christmas, hopefully these should really help with your increasing your kind of customer experience. Great to improve in bookings and kind of inquiries. So I think for anyone that's new, that's joined before I kind of did an intro, obviously I'm Greg from Force Studio. So we really help hospitality and venues kind of really refine how they look, communicate, and connect with guests. So everything from campaigns, brand identities, through to digital design and content. The goal is simple. We want to help your teams attract more inquiries, showcase your spaces beautifully, and really kind of stay at the top of mind. So if any of you would like to have a chat about your venue, I'm happy to jump on a call. Again, feel free. On the left there is to kind of do flip a QR code there, and that'll take you to the audit page. Again, the URL's down the bottom, and we can kind of organize and figure out a way to chat. And then on the right is if you wanted to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. So again, before we go, I think, your venue isn't just, 4 walls. I think it's an experience, waiting to be booked. I think every kind of detail, every touch point, every kind of creative decision that, you know, really helps and shapes you, how you feel. So I think I'll leave you with, you know, make it consistent, make it shareable, and kind of really make it timeless, I think. And you'll be, you know, you'll hopefully turn those kind of browsers into bookers. So yeah, be remembered and not just seen. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for your time. And I've whizzed through quite a lot of information there. Again, I can share this deck if anybody wants it. Please feel free to reach out to me. I can send this over to you, and hopefully you'll take some practical ideas away from that. And again, I don't know if anyone has got any questions or anything like that. You feel free to unmute yourself, or have a, you know, put a chat in the or put a message into the chat. That'd be brilliant. But yeah, thank you so much. If no one's got any bits and bobs, that's brilliant. Yeah, fantastic. Well, yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for your time, and I hope you have a brilliant rest of the day and a brilliant Christmas and festive period. But yeah, all the best. Thank you so much for your time. Cheers.